transparency is most important. You have to know what you're buying. You have to know how it works before you invest in it.
One of the aspects of crypto and DeFi that keeps wider adoption at bay is the whole aspect of being perceived as the wild, wild west. But there are companies which have been working for quite some time now, fixing this aspect of it through security or compliance. And today, we're going to speak to Joe Zhou, who leads a company at the forefront of crypto compliance and security. I'm Sri Misra, founder of Aarna Protocol, your host for Alpha Unhashed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Alpha Unhashed. Today, we have the CEO of a security and compliance company in crypto, Joe Zhou, who runs Beosin. Hello, Joe. Joe, can you introduce yourself for the audience?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. My name is Joe. I am the CEO of Beosin, which is a blockchain security and Web3 compliance company. So our company is specialized in crypto KYT, which is know your transaction, which is the equivalent of Web2's KYC in Web3. And we also have some tailor-made solutions for crypto investigations as well as tracing. So overall, we are here to provide transparency of the on-chain transactions and hope to bring more clarity to our clients when they trade with the other counterparties. So I hope today I can give you more insights, and please enjoy the show.
Joe, why is security such an important issue in the crypto world?
Oh, of course. Now, I think since now a lot of people are participating in trading on the on-chain. So we have heard so many things about hacking, right? So one of the things that we know about blockchain transaction is that everything is stored on the public chains. Everything is actually up there. So a lot of hackers or those kind of people with ill intentions, they try to attack those wallets or custodians, try to find the loopholes in all these smart contracts and try to find a way in to steal those cryptocurrencies. And I think we have heard so many things, bad news or negative news about trading on crypto. So one of the things we see is that people don't understand the importance of blockchain security. So that's why we have these kind of specialized tools, specialized the solutions to help our client to trade like trading in confidence. This is more like give you more confidence in trading because we know a lot of times people find it hard to get into Web3 is that they don't really understand how it works, how the compliance works. They all only hear about the negative news. So what I'm here to do is to provide a solution to comfort them, to make them trade comfortably and try to trade confidently.
So, I mean, there can be security breaches in databases, for example, more akin in the to the Web 2 world. In Web 3 or crypto, it's because financial assets, tokens, crypto tokens, essentially, are on chain, and there are multiple vectors of vulnerabilities that arise, or rather that target these assets, essentially, right? So, what would be the some of the top 3 to 5 vectors which kind of are security issues targeting crypto assets?
One of the most common issues we see is the private key, right? Some about 90% of the cases we see in the security events is somebody actually somehow breached the private keys. It could be there are many ways actually people lost their private key easily. For example, people take a picture, store on their cell phone. Sometimes they just do it easily, like put down the words paraphrases into a notebook and then serve and store that in the hard drive somewhere. And these are not safe at all. And I can tell you, this is quite Web 2, but somehow it just happened all the time. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand this is something that is very commonly happen. So when people are trading, when actually trading on the DeFi, the first thing they need to know is how to preserve their private key in a very safe place, maybe in the most traditional way, maybe write down on a paper, maybe write down on a paper and store in a safe. That's the easiest way to do that. But there are other ways. If you think of other ways, I can give you more in details. But today is not about that. It's more about how to prevent other cases, such as the smart contract, right? Nowadays, we know almost everything on chain. For example, the DEXs, for example, your wallets, or for example, some of the DeFi and GameFi, they are all based on smart contracts. So what we here to see is that a lot of times the smart contracts actually have some loopholes that people can get into that and try to make good use of that. There is a back door somewhere. Actually, that's one. I think that's how Beosin came into being in 2018. So our founders, they were professors in the universities. They found out there was a loophole in a certain coin that is going to list on a big exchange. They'd already observed that, but at that time nobody paid attention. So they wrote a paper about this loophole and published that on the internet. Somehow that loophole actually, but soon after that, there was a very famous security incident where some hackers, they did make use of that loophole and steal the coins after they were listed on the exchange. So after
And can
that,
you let us know what was this loophole, and which hack are you talking about?
I cannot. This is quite not a good thing to disclose, but I can tell you this is one of the reasons how we started the business.
Okay,
Okay.
but the paper they wrote was a public paper, right? So I'm sure if it was that, you could talk about the loophole probably, but not the particular hack you're talking about.
Even for that particular loophole, they wrote a paper, but was after that incident, but it didn't refer to that one directly. They just said there is this kind of loophole, which is quite easy to spot. They spotted it. Anyways,
Okay,
this is just one of the things we saw in the smart contract audit. That's why smart contract audit is very important. So whenever you
absolutely.
have a coins, you have a project, when you wanted to list them or you wanted to actually launch it, I strongly suggest you at least find an auditor to audit that for you. This is what we do daily, and we do see these kind of things happening all the time. And once I can also give you another example where that was happening to me, which was one of the reasons why I decided to get into the field. Okay, this is maybe a very primitive. It's very easy to spot, but at that time in 2018, when everybody was only just beginning doing that, and people were launching NFTs, there were so many NFT projects at the time. And I think in 2020, that was the first time where I worked with some NFT projects, and they did have at that time everything was not so transparent, so they found some project team to write the smart contract for them. And this smart contract, this contractor, they left a backdoor there. Actually, they and their codes, they left something like a creator of the smart contract can override everything. But somehow this just got through. So this contract got through, and the smart contract, all the contractor actually make good use of them and change the ownership of the NFT all to them. And the project team didn't get anything back, of course.
All right.
And the owner, the contract team just disappear after that. So
Right.
this is one of the things we happen. But the good thing is, at that time we also had this smart contract. We had smart contract audit, but we also have what we are talking about today. It's called trace, which is connected to that. So we can trace with the whereabouts of the cryptocurrency
Yeah,
or the
we'll
NFT.
we'll come to the sort of the remediation and the sort of compliance side in due course. But just to understand the different vectors that create vulnerabilities. One is clearly around private keys and the breach that can happen, and quite often it happens in the most simplest of forms, right? Like that's one part. The other is clearly around sort of smart contracts, because everything, all protocols are designed on smart contracts, and then security is absolutely a vital part of it. At Arna, we recognize that we've gone through multiple audits, and every time, even there is a and even all our smart contracts are actually not upgradable. So every time there's any change, they have to be audited and redeployed again. Those Some of those best practices are absolutely must. But like some of the on smart contract vulnerabilities, security issues. I mean, the ones that you mentioned where the developers left a backdoor, especially a third-party developer. I think those are fairly sort of rudimentary ones, and I mean, unless the project team is completely careless or is sort of not really understanding security implications, those some of those can come in. But what are the more advanced vectors today? I mean, they've been, for example, reentrancy attacks have been there for a while now. What are the more advanced forms of breaching smart contract security that you're seeing nowadays?
Nowadays, it's getting more and more complicated. So I cannot give you a good example for now, but every time it's very, very advanced. So for now, it's getting more and more around the where they hide their trace, hide their vulnerability through different contract layers. So the rudimentary, the fundamentals or the root of the hack is almost the same. They will change the ownership, but they hide
Hmm.
it in different loops where you cannot see them. That's all I can say. So the final result is the same. They want to take over the coins, but they nowadays they will write in different loops in different patches, so it's not that easily spotted.
Hmm. Okay. So broadly, you would put it in these two categories. One is a breach of a private key or a smart contract vulnerability. Is
Yeah.
there any other third dimension? Of course, smart contract vulnerabilities kind of have multiple sub areas or vectors within that. But is there any other way that users who are getting into crypto, especially sort of owning their own assets or participating in DeFi on multiple protocols, uh, how should they look at it beyond these two?
I think sometimes there are other things. For example, they will wrote something in the smart contract where you can only buy but cannot sell. These kind of things. It also happened. Some
Mm.
it's all written in the contract, but the
Yeah.
user just didn't know about that. So they bought into the contract. Then they realized that they can only buy but cannot sell. So these are just. But my words is that it's changing every time. It's hard to
Mm.
give you a fundamental rules or some basic principles. But I wanted to tell you that every time when there is a contract, when there is a project or a new coin coming, you need to check whether they audited, right? You need to find whether they are audited by the reputable auditors. And if they are, even they say they are, you need to go to the auditor's website to find their report. That's the only
Yes.
way to verify that. And we also seen people saying they are verified. However, it's never.
Mm.
We also
Yeah.
seen this. So this is the other way that I would want to give our readers or listeners today some hint. You can always find whether they are verified.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about not just finding on the website of the protocol or project whether they're audited, actually checking their audit report on the auditor's platform as well. And many of the security audit firms have their own platform, which are pretty elaborate in terms of not just the security audit scores, the audit reports, but also other parameters like the KYC of the project team, the duration of the project, the code base. So all of so these, I mean, we don't expect that. As you know, the thing is, at one end one has to make it simpler for users to participate in crypto and DeFi, and at the other end, there is this issue of being also being deep enough to a certain stage so that you know what you're dealing with. So there is that balance. I mean, we don't expect users to go in and check the code, obviously, but to do some basic level of checks, like you mentioned, in terms of checking out the team, checking out the project, or who's their auditor, making sure that the auditors are kind of reputable ones, and that they have actually audited the smart contracts of the company. And yes, and of course, the smart contract and the code that one is interacting with has to be the audited one, and that's also an important one. So I think multiple such areas. So, but you've been what shall I say, on the other side of the table in many ways, in two different ways in your career. I won't say the other side of the table, but kind of. But if you look at a round table of sorts, there are multiple sides sitting on that. So on at one end, which is probably the most diametrically opposite end of crypto, is this the whole banking world as it stands, and you spent a considerable amount of time in the financial services world, and then very interestingly, you became a regulator in Hong Kong, right? And
Yeah.
so tell us about that.
Sure, I think that's the very interesting story to tell. For sure, I think my transition from a practitioner into regulator of the TradFi, then finally now I became a Web3, maybe a compliance service provider. It's actually, there is some interlink between them. Okay, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I wanted to say that when I was in the private sector, so I been in the industry since 2004, so I witnessed a lot of the things that I could never imagine. So before 2008, I strongly believe in the derivative structured products, equity derivatives. Then in 2008, there came the global financial crisis, right? So that gave me a very big alarm because I was actually the one who was behind all those derivatives. I was the structurer for a major American investment bank who were just doing the structured products, which is just a contract. It's just a financial product with a lot of derivatives, which is very complicated.
Mhm.
Then I was basically very disappointed in the industry. And somehow I also realized that the financial model that I used to price wasn't quite there yet. It was just in theory works, but in practice, when everything put together, it never works. So it also cannot price in the human nature, right? For example, when we look at the supply at that time, so everything was good, right? In theory, you can diversify the risk if you put a large number of the contracts together. But in theory, the financial model works given the fact that if everyone was actually the good citizens, oh, right, that was a huge assumption. But when the time came, when the human nature kicked in, when really that didn't work, so everyone was actually acting on the dark side. So the market crashed. Anyways, what I'm trying to say that is that it's not transparent enough. It's not there yet at that time. So there afterwards, the American government they threw out a very strict regulations on that, which I think is totally necessary. So I also learned my lesson that we have learned so much. I wanted to help the investing public. That's how I chose to join the regulator, which is the Hong Kong SFC. So so then we try to make everything more transparent. That's why I wanted to say transparency is most important. You have to know what you're buying. You have to know how it works before investing. So same thing here, even in Web3, like you just mentioned, a lot of this new Web2 people or new investor, they wanted to get into Web3, but somehow they don't understand what exactly is Web3. Right? If you ask them, oh, they say, yeah, they're interested. They wanted to buy some coins. They wanted to buy some Bitcoins. But if you're talking about really Web3 project, DeFi projects, I don't think they fully understand how it works. But we do have some tools that can help them to understand more, to give them some comfort, some comfort when they really do their investment. That's why we have this smart contract audit, right? At least I tell you, they are audited. They do what they do. You have to believe our auditing. Now, this is something to help them to understand. So that's how I came about to become this kind of service provider. And at the same time, I also think Web3, it's the blockchain industry is kind of like the gift from God to our generation, right? It's just equivalent to what happened in the industry revolution. So it will change how we how we trade, how we do settlement clearing. So that's why I wanted to participate in the industry. But we also see that there are some something that needs to improve. People needs to know how it works, needs to have more transparency when they actually trade with the different wallets. Because now in the
Mhm.
real DeFi world, there is no KYC anymore. All you need to know is whether you are trading with the legal sources or illicit, or whether they are from legal sources or from illicit sources. You have to know. That's why I wanted to do more to this field.
All right, that's a fascinating journey from structured product creator in the banking financial services TradFi world to a regulator to now in a crypto compliance service company leading and running blockchain security and compliance. Fantastic, sort of a fascinating journey, and I'm sure the crypto side is just getting started. We're just so early in the space. What is one of the most awesome moments that you would like to celebrate in this journey of yours so far? So on the Alpha Unhashed podcast, I celebrate with the founders or leaders of the crypto ecosystem on one of their most awesome moments. And what would you like to celebrate today?
I think today is almost Christmas. Can we celebrate Christmas?
All right. That's
Let's have a toast
always a
first.
reason. So let's
Okay.
do that. So what are you having?
I'm having Chinese tea.
Right. And did you? So when we got started, I saw that you were beginning to make it yourself. So what tea is it? Tell us a little bit more about the tea.
The tea is kind of a famous Chinese tea. It's from Fujian province.
Mm.
So it's it's a Chinese flower.
Mm-hmm.
So it's jasmine tea. So this is something like have very good smell,
Mm-hmm.
aroma. I would say not smell, aroma. So
Mm.
it's Chinese herbs. It calm myself down. So when I
Mm.
look back at this year, of course there are so many things happening. Right? I have to tell you, I think this year is worth celebration because we finally see, for example, BTC breaking a level which everybody was thinking it would break. Somehow it just happened this year. I think this is worth a celebration. It also shows that we chose the right industry, at least,
Mm.
right? And when I look back in my career in 25, I think 20 years career from TradFi to here, so I would have to say that I make a decision to get into Web3 in 2021 after I took part in some projects without really knowing it, and I lost some money. I paid my tuition fee as well.
Mm.
But as I went along this trend, I realized that that could change our how we live, how we trade, how the future would look like. So I decided to stay, decided to contribute more to this. And I so happened that I met you, which I think we had a good chemistry when we first met. You
Hmm.
really know where the problem is and try to be very compliant, which I really wanted to see. Because to tell you the truth, we try to market our products to more DeFi or more DEXs, but they were not there yet. They just don't think it's necessary. Not a lot of DeFi are that paying attention to
Yeah.
compliance yet. But I
Yeah.
think as the regulations are advancing, sooner or later it will happen. So I wanted to get in this field now to broadcast this more. And thank you for having me on this podcast.
Hmm.
So I hope more people will get the message. So this is more for the protection and also for the future to a healthy business.
Well, let's drink to that and to Christmas. Merry Christmas! And I'm having a grapefruit
What is it?
sparkling water. I'm having a grapefruit sparkling water today. Okay,
I thought we were
so
having something to celebrate. This uh, no alcohol today, no beer.
yes, could have just had to kind of rush into the podcast. Had a meeting right before this, so I could not grab the can of beer. But yeah, I'm happy with this to have along with your tea. But yeah, would have loved to have something more interesting. But to that, and wonderful. Where are you right now, Joe?
I'm in the reception. I'm in the big meeting room where I meet our press VIPs and try to
It's in
get
Singapore
them.
or Hong Kong?
It's in Hong Kong right now.
In Hong Kong. Okay.
Yep, this
All
is
right.
our big meeting room where we
Mhm.
have important guests to come over to discuss
Right. There's
the.
a very interesting painting behind you. I can see that. And uh,
I'm
so,
a Buddhist,
yeah,
so
okay. All
that's
right.
part of my religion. So
Uh huh. All right. Okay. And in your journey, so now leading and running a crypto compliance service company. Can you explain to our audience what is a crypto compliance service company?
So I think the as long as we get into the crypto business, it's not just like trading or just not like launching a product, but you need to do a lot of other compliance or other services to make it happen. It's just like any other business. In TradFi, you have legals, right? You have compliance, you have the custodians, you have the trading agency, you have the trading system provider. So in crypto, it's the same. We also have this industry. It's evolving since since this has become the new industry. So there are a lot of service providers which are here to make this happen or make this easier. So this is what we call the ecosystem. Let's put it that way. So the whole ecosystem is going to make this industry
Hmm.
more, I think, more compliant,
Right.
has more growth potential. So we are here to help.
Right. And one big part of that is KYT in the so sort of drawn analogy with KYC, for example, which emanated from the TradFi world, which is about knowing your customer. In the DeFi crypto world, in essentially one is dealing with a wallet. Who is behind the wallet is essential to know in certain forms where especially there is on ramp off ramp happening, there is a conversion from fiat to crypto. But once one is in the ecosystem, then the wallet becomes the identity. And there KYT, which stands for know your transaction, becomes important for anyone who is interacting from their own wallet with another wallet, or interacting with a smart contract, or a smart contract or protocol that is facilitating transactions or accepting deposits from particular wallets. Knowing all of those transactions which are on chain and is sort of an important part of the whole compliance system right now. So can you shed some light on KYD and what are the important dimensions that you guys are sort of looking at securing both protocols and users by looking at KYT.
Sure, thank you. That's I think that's the very essential for me to go over how this concept was done and also how the theory behind it and what we have done to achieve this. So basically, as you know, the one of the beauty of trading in crypto, not in the centralized exchange, but more in the wallet to wallet actions, is the users stay anonymous, right?
Yeah.
So even you can trade with the counterparties where you always see just a bunch of the wallet addresses, right? So that's the beauty of the crypto trading. However, it also gives some problems. There could be some issues. And one of the most common issue is the money laundering, right?
Mm.
And on the other hand, we also see people are using this to do some crypto crimes. For example, they will a lot of love scams, a lot of investment scams. They will ask people to deposit the money into certain wallet addresses, and they just disappear. There's no way to find them. However, I have to say that this kind of the Web3 or crypto crimes, they are no different from the Web2 or regular ones the beginning part. So the scams are always similar. For example, love scams. They just add you on WhatsApp, then they keep chatting with you, then they say that her mother is sick. Maybe she was also running into some trouble. And the people would just deposit money, right? But before crypto, the criminals they need to open a lot of bank accounts. What they did was they need to borrow a lot of the identities of certain people. They bought those ID cards to open bank accounts. So the cost of doing that was so expensive. That's why it also wasn't that efficient in that if you're trading through the banking account when the criminal asks the victims to deposit money in the banking accounts, it's always easy to trace. But for crypto, it's decentralized. There is no banking. Everything every address is stored on the internet. So everything is on the nodes. So that's why they give them the criminals a lot of this kind of low cost accounts to receive money. So a lot of this crime just happened. And on the other hand, for those some of the sanctioned countries, I don't want to go into details on that one, but those sanctioned countries they cannot open bank accounts anymore. So what can they do? One of the easiest way is to use crypto. Like I said, the cost of opening an account is so easy. Everyone can just log online, open a wallet, then they can immediately receive crypto and give out cryptos. If the cryptos or the stable coins, most likely stable coins, are accepted elsewhere, they can just do transactions already. But that's not what we wanted to see, right? It just part of the blockchain use is to increase the clearing and settlement efficiencies. But we just don't want the criminals or those kind of illicit users to actually make use of this feature to do bad things. But this is happening. We cannot assure every user is good people. Although we hope that it's the beautiful world, everyone just complying to the rules. But it's not what we see in the regular way of life. This is where we live right now. So for this kind of crypto crimes, as well as the sanctions and some other illegal uses, the problems are getting more and more obvious. So how do we prevent this from happening? Then we have our know your transactions, which is that we use our existing knowledge to build a huge database, a database that is growing every single day with the wallet addresses. So we tag those wallet addresses with the address tags. For example, some of them belong to the sanctioned countries. We already know that. Some of them belong to some human trafficking organizations. We know that. We tag them. And from there, we also trace where they are trading and who they are trading with. So we can actually know where their money is going into. So this is what we do for the KYT or build this database. So it's actually the idea is just similar to the Web2's KYC. So in KYC, I remember when I was with banking, whenever my clients they wanted to open an account, they need to go through the KYC process. They will submit their name and passport. So our compliance would then run it through a system called word check, put in their name to see whether they are belonging to some certain categories. So our KYT is very similar. We build a huge database to run it every time when you trade it with some wallet address. Our system will then check whether this address has any hits in our database or has any kind of a transaction with the hits known addresses in our database. And then we will give you a score based on the hits and based on the amount of the transaction they have with the illicit addresses. So this in this way, so we can ensure our clients when they are trading, they can trade with confidence. At least they know, even though they don't know the counterparties' identities, but at least they know it's compliant. They are trading
Mhm.
with the right sources, with the right sources of money, and those wallet address actually traded with the legal sources. So this
Right.
is the theory behind, and we hope this concept can be widely accepted by
Okay.
those kind of.
But Joe, isn't it sort of opening a crypto wallet is like a zero cost, step? So how do you guys keep monitoring all the new wallets? Hundreds of thousands of new wallets that any fraudulent player can actually open. And it's all it takes is a two-line script also to kind of automate the whole process, right? So how do you
Yes.
guys monitor that?
So we actually, for all the existing wallet address, we actually already have a database of them. So whenever there is new wallet coming in, we will detect them whether they have traded with the existing ones and give you them a score. So the database keeps growing. For example, our database has now more than 2 billion addresses, and it keeps growing every single day. So it's a very, how do I say this? It's an ongoing process. It never stops. So we have this kind of monitoring system on chain. So similarly, we also monitoring any kind of sensitivity or any kind of sensitive movements on chain. For example, if there is a certain amount of wallets that have big transactions, we will know that already. Then we'll identify what are they doing, something along that line. So it's the good thing about blockchain is everything is on chain, everything is publicly available. All you need to do is develop the right tools to do that.
Once, let's say, one of these tainted wallets
Mm.
transfers assets to, let's say, an exchange, or even deposits into some pool on a DEX or on a DeFi protocol. What happens then? Suppose you guys are monitoring it. Will you get in touch with the project or the exchange and inform them about it, or how will the flow work?
Mm. So basically, the workflow is like this. So a lot of times when the victims, when they got scams or they got hacked, they will they will need to have all the evidence to have to report to the police, report to the law enforcement. They don't report to us, although some of them actually came to us first. We can do some initial investigation, but we don't have the authority to request the exchange or the centralized institutions to give the KYCs. We are not the law enforcement. So once they, even though they found us sometimes, but we will advise them to look for law enforcement to do that. So what the flow is that they came to us for help, and then we will do some initial screening of whether their reporting is true. It's very easy. We will just see, oh, you say you have deposit money, blah blah blah. We will verify those, and then after we verify those, we will give them some reports for them to talk to the law enforcement. So once they report to the law enforcement and the law enforcement decided to take those cases, they will engage us again to help them to have more analysis of the real fund flows. We try to find where the fund is going to, and if they reach to some centralized exchange where we are sure that they have very strong compliance team, they are willing to cooperate, and the law enforcement will then issue a forensic letter for the exchange to give out the KYC information of the particular account. So I have to go back to the basics of our tracing tools. So if they never go to the centralized institutions, there's no way we can find the identity because everything is anonymous. All we see is just they move from one wallet to another. So we have to find where they are stored finally. But I
Mm.
also wanted to show you that now the criminals are getting more and more smart. Before it was very easy because they were just Web2 scammers. All they did was using the Web2 way of getting the money, deposit into a wallet, then they went to the exchange to get into the fiat right away. That was easy to track. But now, since they are getting smarter, they are getting more intelligence. They will do all kinds of things to cover the tracks. For example, they would use the cross-chain bridges to cross that into another coins or even to another chain. For example, they will use mixers, right? Or they will even use some other ways. For example, they store it into the cold wallet. Then we have no way to find them. It's getting smarter every day, but we do develop some new tools to cope with them. But coming to the final question is that we need to work with the law enforcement in order for the exchange to give out the KYC. Only with us, we don't have the authority to do that. That's
Right.
why we have to work with the law enforcement. And the law enforcement purchase our products to issue their own reports. Sometimes they just use that on their own.
Hmm. But also, projects, DeFi projects and exchanges work with you guys to have a constant monitoring system for KYT, right? So that's the other way you guys operate, and whenever there are any suspicious transactions, they become aware of that. Now, one of the things is, um, some of these tainted wallets, or the whole system of flows, where we've seen, or where you guys would have seen, tainted, or laundered money, or stolen assets are flowing. Is there a way of freezing them in those wallets to make them redundant? Is there a way of recovering them? Because these tokens can essentially be frozen in any wallet as well, right? If
Yeah.
So, can you shed some light on that?
Right. For us, we don't have the right to do that. But I know that some of the issuers of those tokens, for example, USDT, Tether, they have their own surveillance team or the monitoring team. They can do their own checks. They do develop their own KYTs, which they track the whereabouts of their own tokens. So if they will also do the checks whenever there is reached to a certain limit. For example, they will say, "Oh, this wallet has at least 20% of that." It's just a random number. Okay, I am not here to verify this number. I'm just saying, okay, they make a rule that if certain wallet has this kind of illicit funds from sanctioned countries over a certain limit, they will take action. They actually have the right to do that. So I have to give you more statistics now. So last year, 2023, Tether frozen around 100 accounts. But this year alone, I think it's more than 1,000 now. So it's getting
1,000
more.
wallets. Okay.
Yes. So we
Okay.
do have some clients asking us what to do because when they frozen the wallet, they don't only froze the problematic one, they froze the whole wallet
Okay.
of
So
the
when you say,
USDT.
what does freeze mean here? So they can't freeze the wallet, but they would have frozen the USDT in the wallet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issuer in this case you're talking about, let's say Tether, about USDT, or it could be any issuer. They froze the assets in that particular wallet.
Mm.
So it's so what the user can, so the wallet cannot transfer it or do anything else with that at all.
Cannot.
Okay. And you mentioned that it's not only that wallet, so some other wallets which may be some unsuspecting good user who might have interacted with that wallet, their wallet there the and hold some of that USDT, for example. They could have or any token for the matter, their assets would be frozen as well, could be
Right.
frozen as
If
well.
they,
Okay.
yeah, because as I said, a lot of people, all those DeFi users, they don't realize the importance of this. Maybe
Mm.
they don't do this intentionally, which I believe
Mm.
most of them are good citizens. They don't have any knowledge of doing this. But somehow this wallet, somehow this kind of illicit funds just froze around and they
Mm.
got into their wallet without the users actually knowing that. So I strongly urge all those DeFi users who are listening today, if they are really an institution user, they have to purchase or equip themselves with the KYC system so that they know exactly how healthy their wallets are. So this is very
Mm-hmm.
important to protect themselves. This is one thing. On the other hand, I also strongly advise them to actually, if they do have this kind of tools, if they found something that even though they don't do anything. But if they found their money flows out, eventually goes
Mm.
into illicit funds, they should
Mm.
report it somewhere to help to block this. It's just like if everyone is immune, then the
Mm.
illicit funds have nowhere to go. So they have to act.
So, what would be your sort of your advice on the SOPB to a user? And we're talking about a good compliant user who has inadvertently reacted or interacted with a sort of tainted wallet or a tainted contract and has received some tokens from there, and it's frozen now. And so how does the user go about reporting it, and especially unfreezing it, if especially and I'm sure this must be happening at times to good users who have a pretty large value of assets frozen. So how do they go about that?
Okay, there is actually, if you go to Tether's website, they do have a place where you can report your cases.
Okay, so that's
And
about Tether, but in generally, are we talking about only stable coins here, or it could be any other token as well?
any other tokens could do that too. But as far as I'm aware of, most of the time happen with the stable coins. So
So
I'm
the
just
issuers
look.
of the stable coins are sort of monitoring the ecosystem, and then if there is a large value of sort of transactions happening, which are kind of completely tainted in some form, they've taken the steps to freeze them, and this is happening quite frequently now. You're saying, as in whenever. Okay.
I think they are taking steps to do that, and in since I'm recently in Hong Kong, Hong Kong has just have the stablecoin bill coming out very soon in I think early next year. So one
Mm.
of the requirements there is that the issuer needs to have their own monitoring mechanism in place,
Mm-hmm.
where they monitor their wallet, all their transactions in real time, whether they are from illicit sources. So this is something that is required by the regulations. I think in the future, for all stablecoin issuers are required to have their own monitoring system in place. So whenever something is wrong, even though they don't take any actions, but they need to report their MLRO. That's for sure. The reporting
Okay.
must be in place.
Okay. No, so that's so I'm just thinking through this. So obviously from an AML perspective, very important, from a KYD perspective, very important. But isn't this one of the fundamental features or philosophies of crypto where the asset is supposed to be sovereign resistant and here, because of some bad actors, and it's always that's how it happens, because of some bad actors you end up with a whole bunch of regulations which everyone has to follow. But here we're talking about essentially a centralized entity exercising control over those assets, and then who knows who's controlling that centralized entity, like a stablecoin issuer in and what happens beyond that. Is that not something which can be abused as well?
You ask very difficult questions. There is no answer to that, and I agree with you. Actually, a lot of times when we look at the origin of cryptos, it's not supposed to be like this, right? Who would have known? But since now it has become a asset that has been heavily used by a lot of people, and I think it's necessary for the regulations or the regulators to come in to do something about this. So originally, it was just like a small scale of just P2P, because it originally was just a P2P, right? It's a ledger that is existing on the internet. Everyone has their own ledger, and this ledger is has a consensus mechanism. But since now become more and more, how do I say this, institutional, and more people decided to participate, the regulations have to come in. I strongly believe that since I came from a regulatory background, I think it has to be regulated. But like you said, yeah, it's supposed to be decentralized, but now it's becoming more and more centralized. In a way that you are right, but I think there has to be a balance between decentralized and centralized. You have to have some sort of centralized features in that
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
have, for example, for the example I just mentioned, even if we trace the whereabouts of cryptos, we still need to go to a centralized exchange where you have the real um, KYC, where you have to match the person's identity with the address. So that part is already centralized. So overall, I think in the future, the regulations have to come in. Some sort of the centralized feature will be there, but it also have the still have their own benefits of the trading and settlement clearing
Mm.
features. So that will
Mm.
coexist. But like I said, I cannot answer your questions to your satisfaction. There is no answer to that. I strongly debate that all the time.
Mm.
But
No,
maybe you can
I
tell me
cannot.
too.
No, it's a difficult one. I can understand, but this part of it somehow flies against the one of the major features or systems design of crypto. But at the same time, there is a, like we say, it's few bad actors which kind of leads to some of these issues. I also feel that regulation for the easier part of the regulation in terms of KYC in exchanges, on ramp, off ramp, all of that stuff is sort of more easily dealt with in some form. But for a permissionless, borderless asset and technology like crypto, if there has to be a regulatory framework, and one that sort of doesn't sort of kill it in so that it's then genuine users don't even sort of end up participating. It's only the fringe elements, the fringe just participates in that. The regulation has to be in the right form, and also I think it has to be pretty borderless in some sense, so that there aren't different pockets of, let's say, decentralized finance or DeFi regulation in multiple geographies, but it's kind of more borderless, and isn't in the control of one country, or one central regulator in that way. That regulation, the design and enforcement of that regulation itself needs to be governed in some form of a decentralized way.
I think there has to be a balance between decentralized and centralized. Like I said, it cannot be totally irregulated.
Mm.
But if it is totally decentralized. There's no way to regulate that. So we have to make sure that in certain way, maybe we have to have some sort of the centralization, but in a way that it doesn't hinder the efficiency of the transactions. That's what we want. That's
Right.
what the institutions would want,
Mm.
right? Even if you look at all these Web3 projects, right? All those VCs, when they came in, they also wanted to have some sort of the compliance in place. You cannot do it totally in compliance at all. So if you wanted to go rogue, for like I mentioned before, the NFT project, nobody cared about compliance. Nobody really cared. They just wanted to make money. That's not what we want, right?
Yes. Yeah. So how do take DeFi protocols? Okay, how do they bring in the element of KYT into their monitoring system? And companies like yours, like Beosin, they help them do that. So there are is most of the action that steps in that comes from that, is it sort of pre a transaction or is it post a transaction? How does it work? Can you explain that, especially in the context of the fact that DeFi protocols, there is a UI which the project has, through which most users are interacting, but obviously everything is on a decentralized network down, right? So more advanced users can directly interact with the protocol through Etherscan, or without having to go through the UI, for example, or multiple other ways. So, where does KYD come in, and what's your can you give an overview for especially for founders or devs in the DeFi space who are kind of keen to understand KYD and how they can look at that?
So I think our KYT comes in a very easy to use form where they use an API where you can connect your system to the trading system. Whenever there is a wallet come into place with your DEX or a DeFi project, you will actually scan that wallet in real time. In real time, actually, it just instantly give you a result. If it is above certain limits, you don't accept that money. That's the basic rule. So once you, even if sometimes it came into your wallet even without problems, if they went into somewhere, you can still track them. But if you see the money frequently flows into some illicit sources, illicit addresses, you have the right to actually refuse to accept the money from that address. You can put that in place. So this is only to give you a certain kind of autonomy with your compliance in place, but it doesn't necessarily means you cannot do business anymore. You can keep observing, keep this kind of a document for your own protection. So I also heard some of the biggest the decentralized platform like the famous swaps, this kind of Uniswap, they actually are using similar measures. So it's getting there. It's getting to that level where the regulators needs to be comfortable with the DeFi. And I believe this is the best practice from now on, even for smaller ones.
All right. Fascinating having this conversation on security in crypto and DeFi, KYT, the implications of that, and awesome to have you, Joe, on this episode of Alpha Nashed. Thank you.